My name is Pantenburg. I'm currently working as a Max Kade visiting professor at the Department for Germanic Studies at UIC. And when I'm not here, I'm teaching and researching in Weimar, Germany at Bauhaus University, where I have a position at an institute called IKKM, a very complicated long name, where I direct a graduate student program. I usually try to encourage in my writing what I like in academic, Anglo-American academic writing, and that is a certain transparency and clarity without simplification. So those are the two poles that I try to navigate, to be clear and transparent, but not becoming too simple. And it's something that I really like in lots of Anglo-American academic writing. And in many cases this might mean to make 3 sentences instead of 1 sentence, because German language is so good at having very complicated grammatical structures, and I think in many cases it helps to just reflect about, okay, is this really going to fit in 1 sentence? And oftentimes it might be better to just make 3 out of 1. I think it might sound paradoxical, but the challenging thing is that certain things are very familiar, and you begin to think, okay, I know how this works and this sounds fine, but oftentimes this familiarity and the proximity that you get to a certain language might also be deceiving. So I'm always very skeptical to think, okay, this is really what it should sound like, and in many cases I think you still have to double check if it's really expressing what you want to express, and so you have to be skeptical of your own I don't know, optimism in a way, and try to think about it more often than you would in German language.
Okay.
Maybe just to give one example of this, there's this word irritierend in German, which probably would mean something like perplexing. And of course there's the English word irritating, and I remember that I used to write a text where the word irritating was in it, and I didn't realize that it has a much stronger meaning in English, that it really means to be angry about something. In Germany it would be almost neutral, it would just mean that you don't really know what's going on, you're a little perplexed, but those are of course the cases where you think, okay, the word exists, so it's probably going to mean about the same thing, but the meanings of course differ quite largely. So, I try to organize a text conceptually first, and then make some notes, and then so that there's going to be some kind of architecture in the text, or some kind of basic skeleton in a way, and then I add more and more, and it becomes rounder and rounder. So this is usually the way that I proceed, and it also gives you a good feeling that the page is no longer blank, even if it's something where you know, okay, this is not gonna stay there for long, but it's always good to have something that you can work with, that you can, I don't know, even if you eliminate it altogether in the end, it's good to have something. Or different modules, and certain modules might just consist of quotes that I have gathered from texts and that I know that are going to be pertinent or are going to refer in some way to my argument, but it's not quite clear in which way. And I try to have all this in one document, which makes it a little complicated and it becomes a little messy after a while, but I think it's easier to focus if it's all there instead of having different documents, and I tend to forget how many documents I have if I have several, so that's one reason probably. I think the rule that I think of is that the more formalized it gets, the more difficult it becomes, because as soon as it's an official letter that goes somewhere, you really have to check that all the nuances and all the connotations are right, and I feel more comfortable with academic essays, also because usually with academic essays, as soon as you hand them in, there's going to be someone, some native speaker who is going to look over it, and who is going to object to certain things, who is going to ask some questions, or tries to make you clarify certain points. So there's some someone who checks, and with other kinds of communication, you're much more on your own, and then off the text goes, and this is always a certain risk. But then with email communication, as so much of even professional communication is via email today, I think it probably has become a little less formalized. And my impression is that in the United States it's less formalized than in France, for instance, where there's all these phrases and all these idioms that you have to employ as soon as you address someone somewhere in a certain hierarchy. But then again, maybe I'm mistaken, and there's the same hierarchy, but I'm not aware of it, which might be a problem or an advantage at the same time. But in academic writing, I think I feel quite comfortable, but that also has the reason that there's someone else who checks. Although I don't have any native speakers proofread my text before I hand them to a journal or an editor of an anthology or something. So I did this at first, but it just takes too much time and energy to do this before, and often it's very close to deadlines, so it's not always an option. Yeah, and I usually try to be a little ahead of the deadlines to have the opportunity to just leave the text sitting there for, I don't know, 2 nights, sleep over it, then have a fresh look at it, and oftentimes I would then recognize certain things that don't work, both in terms of structure, but also in terms of language. And of course, I mean, even if it's just a simple device as the word processor that underlines certain words, sometimes it's just the hint that you need to realize, okay, this doesn't work. I wouldn't rely on word processors to tell me how the American language functions, but still sometimes it's just those minuscule things that they can rectify for you. Yeah, to a certain extent, I think I've started with this observation that I try to apply what in my writing, what I like when I read certain texts, and I think there's this very close relation, and reading probably is the best training for writing anyway. And the reason for this is that the more you read, the more you get aware that there's this vast scope and a variety of different writing styles that you can approach, and that I think this scope facilitates making decisions about your own style. You can always think, okay, this is something I like, how does it work? It makes you very aware. It's a different kind of reading if you know that you will somehow have to incorporate the experiences of reading in your own writing. So I think it's like 2 coins of a medal, probably 2 coins of two sides of a coin. That's what I wanted to say. I think implicitly I've probably already answered this question. I think it's best to study those writers closely that you really like, and in this case I would be really hedonistic. Just go after what you feel attached to, what you like, what you enjoy reading, and then study those writers and try to find out what it is that you like in them. And then, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can apply those things that you like just by transferring them into your own writing, but it makes you very aware of stylistic differences, and then some kind of decision will come out of it. Be it, okay, I like his writing, but it's not something that I could do, or okay, this is great. I can make use of it. And I think in many cases it's also good to try to sense what the grammar of a different language, in this case the English language, tells you what is possible, and not too much to stretch and bend the grammar of a foreign language just to make it fit to what you originally wanted to say in your native language. This, I think, it's sometimes it leads to very complicated and very winding sentences that are often too complex, and that cannot transmit what you really wanted to say. So, just read a lot.